Hello and welcome to the new retail funnel, an hour-long session looking at how AI assistants, creators, and marketplaces are reshaping the path to purchase. Our goal in this session is to try and give you a clearer view of how the online discovery phase of e-commerce is changing, and how it's kind of reshaping the overall path to purchase. This session has been brought to you by the Fashion Network, the Ecommerce Club, and Athos Commerce, with a special thanks to stylecareers.com, who are our US professional development partners. I've just got a couple of things to note. So for all of you who are listening to this in the live session right now, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the chat box. We really do encourage that interaction because it just makes it, well, I think it makes it a much better learning experience. The only thing I would say is if you can keep your questions fairly brief, and your comments can be a bit more, can be a little bit longer, but if you keep the questions quite brief, it just makes it easy for us to sort of read out, basically. So yeah, so any comments or questions for anyone listening to this live, if you happen to be listening to this as a recording at a later date on our YouTube channel, we'd be grateful if you can click like and subscribe. We do monitor the comments on that, but it's not as regular. So it's, you know, if you want to get involved with these sessions, the best way to do it is in the live feed. I'm going to ask the audience the first question. So I'm going to ask everybody who's coming in. We'd be grateful if you pop in the chat box. Just let us know where in the world you're from. And let us know what job role you do. So let us know where in the world you're from. Let us know what job role you do. And if you don't mind, it'd be good to know which company you work for. But if you don't want to let us know, that's fine. But at the very least, let us know where you're from and let us know what job role you're doing. And that'll give our panelists an idea who they're speaking. So anyway, while you're doing that, I'll introduce myself. So I'm Dale. I'm one of the co-founders here at the Fashion Network, and I'll be moderating today's session. Alongside me, we have Stephanie Brown. Stephanie is an e-commerce product lead and AI builder at Athos Commerce. Stephanie specializes in how AI is transforming product discovery in digital retail. Alongside Stephanie, we have Rosie Bentham. And Rosie is a strategic key account lead for fashion and beauty at TikTok Shop UK. And she's involved with helping brands turn creator-led content into scalable commerce growth. Alongside Rosie is Paul McDermott, and Paul is a digital transformation, marketing, and e-commerce consultant. He's currently working with Diageo, but he's worked across various retailers over the years. Paul focuses on driving performance through integrated digital strategy. Alongside Paul, we've got Margaret Thim. Margaret is a fractional merchandising consultant and former leader at brands like Hottest Shoes, Misguided, Mataland, amongst other brands. Margaret's got quite a deep expertise in sort of modern merchandising strategy. We had a very interesting chat this morning, and she's taught me a few things already. Last by no means least, we've got Alex Green, who's a regular to these sessions. Alex is also a fractional head of e-commerce, formerly with brands such as Nexus brands, Yours Clothing, I Saw It First, amongst others. Alex specializes in scaling multi-channel retail growth. So that's our panel, and I see a few of you have already put a few things in the chat box. Let's have a quick nosy. We've got a few people here from Mumbai. We've got e-commerce manager here from the UK. We've got someone here from Brighton. We've got another e-commerce manager, visual merchandisers. We've got quite a lot of people from the UK, senior e-commerce executive. We've got someone here from Amazon, interesting. So we seem to have quite a wide array of different expertise or different skill sets in the audience, which should make this for an interesting discussion. Anyway, so thank you guys for all joining us. I'm just going to say a quick thank you to our sponsor today, which is Athos Commerce. Steph, do you just want to say a few words about what you guys do? And I'll just bring up your slide. So yeah, let us know what you guys are doing and why you've sponsored today's session. You might need to come off mute.
Hi, thanks very much. Welcome everybody to today's session. So Athos Commerce enables brands to make it easier for shoppers to find the right products at the right time in the right place, wherever those products are, whether that's on site through the brand's website or off site through marketplaces, social commerce channels, TikTok Shop obviously being one of those, comparison shopping engines, and of course, the new AI conversational chats that we're seeing now. So Google AI mode, Gemini, ChatGPT, and all of those, and Perplexity as well. So we unify search, merchandising, personalization, and feed management into a single AI powered platform. So replacing that fragmented solution that you might have into one system. So the platform's coupled with deep retail expertise across very smart and very committed people across the business, which really helps our brands and retailers achieve accelerated revenue growth and improved product visibility wherever shoppers are looking.
Thanks, Steph. And if anyone would like to get in touch with Athos Commerce, I think Steph's colleague is going to put an email in the chat for you guys. So if you want to book an appointment, I do believe you're giving free web audits and free product feed audits. Is that right, Steph? So,
That's right. Yes. Yep. So hop onto the website, and if anyone has any curiosities about things like how their Google shopping feed might be ready in terms of preparing for agentic commerce, then we can help you carry out an audit and give you some pointers on where you should be focusing.
Brilliant. And I think Andra is going to pop in your email in the chat box now, and we'll also share it afterwards. We'll send everyone an email with your details. Anyway, let's get on with the discussion. I'm going to come to you first, Paul, if you don't mind. First question I'd like to sort of like put to you, and then I'll sort of ask a few of the others, is this basically. So obviously as AI assistants, so we're looking at ChatGPT, Google SGE, TikTok search, etc. As those sorts of assistants increasingly act as the first touch point in discovery, what, in your opinion, does an optimized product data and product content feed look like in this kind of new environment?
So,
yeah.
So first of all, good product content still needs to be structured in a, to good SEO practices. So, it's not, this isn't a revolution as such as far as product content goes. But the big change, the big difference is that product content, not necessarily content on your PDP, but your product content also needs to be perhaps more conversational and have more context to it. So, the days of kind of keywords and bullet points now are probably numbered, thankfully. There's a lot more depth and richness, if you like, that's going to be required for product information and content more generally. I've complained probably for about over 10 years that, finance teams in particular focus too much on the bottom end of the funnel and around, very deliberate kind of ROI measures. It's now unavoidable that the input of your efforts and around content and product information has got to be much further up, because now we've got this unknown thing that is in between the question and the result, and it's going to get its information from lots of different places. So technically, your product data still needs to be structured really well for your own properties and particularly your website. But you're probably going to have to talk about your products in more ways and add more context. So, for example, what's your product information look like on your FAQs and on help pages? So, if you've got, for example, and it's going to vary, right? But if you've got particular hero products that have got functional questions that customers are going to ask, it's probably a good opportunity to start building these things into your website, not necessarily on a PDP, but definitely somewhere, so that there's good information, there's good source material that different LLMs can go and get. And that's before we start getting into how your product appears in Reddit or wherever else it is that's completely out of your control. So all of those good practices still exist. But definitely context, I think, is going to be the biggest change that people have got to make with their product data.
And Steph, what about you? What's your perspective on this? Would you sort of kind of agree with his take on it? Or?
Echoing what Paul says, really, there's been so many kind of scaremongering statements that I've seen out there, feeds are dead and discovery has changed beyond recognition. And it hasn't. So, like Paul said, we're still really fundamentally talking about SEO. It's just that the consumers of that are changing. So we have to think about product data in the sense of we're not just preparing product data now for shoppers and for the algorithms to be able to discover these products. We're preparing product data now in readiness for what is effectively going to be a digital sales force, i.e., the agentic agents who are going to be looking at this product data and trying to work out, is this the right product? Does this meet this shopper's criteria? And going through, reasoning and decision making in a way that product content hasn't really been used before in a programmatic way. So really it's about training the product data and optimizing product data in the same way, but also in a different way. And like Paul says, it's about being able to answer those very nuanced questions, which are going to vary so much from customer profile to customer profile. So, if I'm looking for a washing machine, my criteria versus what, say, my 76-year-old mother is going to be looking for are going to be very different. And the questions that I'm going to be asking the chat GPTs and Perplexity are going to be very different. So you need to be able to have the ability to answer these very nuanced, intent-driven questions, but in a structured way. So, we're going to see things like, what activity is this trainer intended for? What finish is this kettle? So, if somebody's looking for a kettle to match the decor of their kitchen and they want it to be in rose gold or whatever finish they want, you've got to be able to answer those questions. But it's not just about that product data, it's about all of the other questions that come with that as well. One of the most common product discovery queries now in conversational search is, once you've found the product, well, what out of these products are going to be delivered to me tomorrow with where I am? And at the end of, when you think about agentic commerce, if you found the right product, but you can't answer the question of when is it going to be delivered because that returns data is also not available to the AI agent in a structured way, then your product will be discounted. So it's about products being discovered in a different way and having that intent level, usage level data to be able to answer those very specific questions rather than stuffing titles and descriptions with SEO keywords.
It's interesting because I bought something recently. I think it was a shirt, and I just wanted to know what the fabric felt like.
Yeah.
And I typed in the brand name and all the rest of it, and it came up. It didn't give me the answer I wanted, sort of thing. So I had to rephrase the question and stuff. That's quite interesting. Margaret, when we were talking earlier, you were talking to me about how you personally use AI assistants.
Yeah.
I can't remember the example you used.
Yeah, it was prom shopping at the weekend with a family member. So she was in the changing room and she got the dress and she liked the top of the dress but didn't like the bottom of the dress. So it was just an instant take a picture of the dress and asked chat GPT, can you find me a dress that's got this top but with a fishtail bottom? And straight away, obviously, AI came up. Luckily, we couldn't find that dress, but that then gave us whether we were going to purchase while we were there or not. Because if she would have found that dress and it was accessible to her and it was the right price, we would have gone out the shop and not bought that product. So yeah, using AI for me is a key thing in terms of, like you say, people want things on demand and they want it there and then. So it enables us to kind of, for a retailer, it's a bad thing because we could have walked away and not made that purchase because straight at my hand, I could see whether that product was available or not.
Alex, I kind of feel that this is still a very evolving sort of topic. Obviously you guys have got a lot of experience between you all. And so, if anyone knows their stuff, you know their stuff, but I still feel this is quite an evolving subject. I don't think everyone quite has that right strategy. What's your take on sort of optimizing for AI assistance? How you sort of think? I know obviously the current business you've got, you're very, very AI focused, but
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to build something using completely AI, and I think it highlights the benefits of humans with everything that you sort of do, in the sense that, AI will be very rigid in its way of thinking. And I think that the human element is what might help you get that discoverability because you're using the terms that actual real people use, not necessarily what you're kind of going back to. I think they'd almost like go to the generic keywords or the most I guess, yeah, the most competitive, but actually, that isn't maybe where you're going to have the success. So you've got to have be able to sort of think where it's you going in a bit more niche, adding keywords which are more relevant, getting into that sort of detail that is going to make a difference to you, but also flipping it on its head and sort of going, well, actually, by us making things, rapid and create formulas, does everything then become the same? And then is that actually having a negative impact because Google is, maybe still favoring towards, more sort of written content by humans as well. So you've kind of got to find a balance of how you approach it. Now, what it can do is do stuff that you dream of and you want to trial and do it very quickly. I've sort of built out a site and I've kind of done hundreds of footballers, and when there's no sales behind it, you've kind of just got a dump of either alphabetical order, but what you've, it's just a mess. So by trying to use it to sort of sequence it based on data that you've already can access through, top player lists and stuff like that, but then layering in elements around sort of Champions League performance and goal scorers this weekend and stuff like that, you could do something that a human could never do quickly, and sort of being, or you wouldn't want to put your time and effort into that because it costs you, thousands to do that on a weekly basis. But by actually writing a script that uses AI to sort of do stuff in seconds that a human can't do, there's benefits, but you've also got to have someone sort of almost challenging it back because it will do stuff quickly and it'll write it in a way that you think is fantastic and it's automated. But then when you deep dive into it, it is just a very sort of generic Lego block type building two or three words together. And I think that's what you've almost got to kind of unravel and sort of do stuff in batches. So almost test in multiple sort of things rather than doing it all in one go across your entire database.
Paul, is anyone you've noticed that's doing this well? Like AI, what I can't remember the acronym now. SEO, what's the AI SEO? I forget what the actual acronym is now.
Yeah, that was a disco tune when I was a kid. No, so yeah, GEO and AIEO, and yeah, we've got to have a name for it, haven't we?
Yeah.
I think one of the difficulties is like, who's doing this well is, it's difficult to see the results, and we'll probably talk about measures later on because that's another obsession that we've got. But at the moment, a lot of this you're going to have to feel your way through because it's quite anecdotal around, who's doing this well. Because until you can see what those results are of that activity on your top and bottom line, then it's just simply, oh, I like the look of that product description. I think for me, it's going to be more important about, again, real basics and fundamentals, but understand your consumers better. Look in different places at what language customers use and what type of things they're interested in. Customer services teams are fantastic at doing this. They do it every day. They talk to more customers than they probably even want to, and get a good feel from them about what questions are your customers asking, because this is the key thing, is that we've gone from typing a search to asking a question and then iterating it. That's actually what's happening. It's gone from typing something very deliberate into help me solve this problem. No, I didn't mean like this. I meant like this. Okay, well now how do you it's becoming a lot more conversational, and customer service teams do this all the time, and it's often an overlooked valuable resource. So I think rather than obsessing about who's doing it better, I think look at people in your own organization that can give you some great answers.
Thanks, Tasha. She's put AEO, GEO, or AI search. Brilliant. Well, obviously, the topic of this is obviously the funnel. So I want to talk a little bit more about the funnel. But before I bring Rosie in, I just want to sort of maybe come to you, Steph. And I mean, just listening to you guys talk, is the AI assistant thing just used as some sort of like confirming one's purchase, or is it actually a funnel driver? What would you say? What's it being used for mostly in your experience, Steph?
So from an on-site capability, it's about moving those shoppers. And again, it kind of depends on the intent as well and the type of query, and identifying the types of queries in these conversational experiences is really important. So it's about, depending on where the stage and what the kind of buying intent is, helping move that shopper along that journey in a smoother way with as least friction as possible, so that they're not, if you find the product you love through the conversational search, and then you're having to go somewhere else to try and find out, is it in stock? Can I return it within a time frame that suits me? Can I return it to somewhere that is convenient for me? If any of those kind of journeys introduce friction, then that's where you obviously have that kind of higher level of dropout. So I think it's about being able to identify the intent of that shopper at that point in time and removing that friction on site. And then off site, I think it's more about matching the intent to that product, but making sure that the product content is actually accurate and that you're reducing the opportunity for an AI to hallucinate and disrupt that and add friction into that shopper querying, conversational queries.
So just making sure everything is optimized as best in the traditional sense. So if I'm looking for top 5 best rocker sole trainers, then you'll show up in that AI search basically. So it is funnel. It's also confirming, and it's being used for a variety of reasons by the sound of it. Then at the moment, is there any stats that you can sort of suggest that, like, AI assistants are generating X amount of deliveries to purchase, or is it? Have you come across anything like that, or?
So I think really, as Paul was saying, it's a bit too early. A lot of the solutions aren't out there yet to actually be able to dig into exactly what's driving that discoverability. If you look at Google shopping results at the moment, and we ingest all of the shopping reports into the system, and we know that within impressions, for example, that now includes traditional Google search, Gemini search, AI mode, but you can't see what the split is between those different metrics. So I think that remains to be seen and uncovered.
Okay, right, Rose, I'm going to bring you in now. So we've talked a little bit about AI assistants. I want to talk a little bit about creator-led content. So with TikTok Shop and the creator-led discovery compressing the funnel, what are the key sort of signals, such as content style, creator fit, product data, etc., that generally influence conversion at the point of discovery? Can you give us some insights on how that's working with TikTok Shop?
Yeah, of course. So I guess as a sort of content discovery run platform, content type and volume of content is super important in order to drive conversion and create a strong revenue driving performance channel for any brand. And I think at TikTok Shop, we really encourage and educate sellers on how to make a really strong TikTok. So we use creative code books to essentially have like a cheat sheet on how to make a good TikTok and what that looks like. And there's definitely a difference between that sort of e-commerce, like shoppable content, the brand awareness content. So thinking around like hooks, so that might be aha moments in the first sort of 3 seconds of a video, to problem solving, to call to action, encouraging conversion whilst watching the video. And all of these sorts of things are paramount, I think, to sort of encouraging the user to actually buy an app. TikTok is definitely a different platform to other social channels like Instagram, which are far more aspirational. The users are really watching authentic content from both sellers and creators, and this is the USP of the platform and really does drive success. So the videos and live streams that can really allow the user to understand and get feedback on the product firsthand is really important. I think also, talking to the AI point, we have lots of different sort of creator product matchmaking tools now that we use on a regular basis. So to essentially find the best match of creators to your product type, understanding the different audiences and also category specific data that we have for what different creators might push. And yeah, ultimately we are a marketplace, so we are also thinking about those sort of key trading moments across the year. So summer sale, Black Friday, all those sort of traditional moments that we have in retail. We are running in-app campaign moments where we encourage volumes of content to be sort of ramped up around these times to be able to get out information about key like brand and product messages, and sort of teasing, launching, promoting new products. So encouraging that sort of like exposure and brand visibility, brand buzz over certain product types is key, and thinking about how we can do that through driving, scarcity tactics, and also, exclusive products, bundling, all of these sorts of different strategies to encourage conversion in app.
Is there like, can you sort of summarize what content is kind of brand awareness type content and what content drives sales? Or am I asking for too much of a simplistic answer in that?
No, I think content that drives sales is generally authentic content that's actually a user talking about that item. So it could be using text overlays or voiceovers, for example. Also having call to action, so making sure that there's like an end point of that video of what the user actually needs to do once they've completed watching it. Also thinking about what is that product actually doing for the user. What's the problem that it's solving? For example, like the aha moment, if it's something in the food type, for example, or it may be that it's like a jean that's like super stretchy and comfortable and has a good fit, and therefore it's solving a comfort problem. So it's just really thinking about what's the storytelling message behind the item and how can we convey that to the consumer to encourage conversion.
And if you saw, like, if I showed you 10 content creators right now, would you have a gut feeling, or do we even have any stats about this? About, yeah, they're definitely a seller. No, they're more of a brand awareness. Or can you do that or not? Or
I think it's really about that authentic conversation. So TikTok definitely is a very authentic platform. So the more, real-time feedback that creator is giving about the products, it's really honest, transparent, authentic content that the user is watching. And I think that's key. Perhaps maybe more of a brand campaign, sort of aspirational, product image or video. Two very different types of content.
Paul or Alec, either two. Have you guys got much experience in live commerce at all? And what's your thoughts on it? Paul, can I come to you first on that one?
Reaching for the mute button to say no, not really, other than a bit of drunk buying at midnight. I think for me, what's really, really useful here is listening to what Rosie's been saying is, again, all of those, these things are really important to your TikTok content. You can say these things are really important to your content, so how you are addressing your consumers and how you're talking about your brand and your products, in TikTok, it's a perfect example of where it's that conversation and context gives you really good sort of templates, if you like, to work to when you're thinking about repurposing that content for elsewhere. So it's almost like you've got to think about that type of use case, if you like, speaking technically, to create your content first, and then draw it back for, that will work for a PDP, but this will work for TikTok, etc. So I think it's really interesting. It's really insightful. It's a very, very different way that we've got to start thinking about creating content and product information now.
Steph, do you guys get involved with this aspect of the funnel drive, live commerce, TikTok shop, etc.?
So yes, we do, in that from a product content point of view. So we recently launched Argos and John Lewis on TikTok from a product catalog perspective. Both obviously significantly investing in the TikTok shop platform to capture new audiences, really. So they're currently in pilots with those. But I think really it's about understanding that demographic, and for, a retailer like John Lewis, understanding the product segments to target in the first place on the TikTok type of platforms as well is so important. And then to echo Rosie's really good point about the product story, I think it's really important to understand what is the product story you want to tell, but also having that product story align with each of your different customer profiles as well. Like I was saying before, the product story to one person needs to be a different product story to what you're going to be looking for when you're on the content platform. So yeah, we've really been focusing on helping brands get the product content right. And obviously the other key factor as well, as good as the content is and those live shopping experiences, the key signals that are going to influence the conversion and help are going to be that real-time accuracy, which is also something that we can help retailers with. So, it's all very well showing brilliant content and having the right alignment between the content creator and the shopper profiles. But if the products are out of stock because, there's a lag between updating stock from the seller systems onto TikTok, then obviously that's going to create friction, likewise around pricing, price points, and so on. So all of that is super important to get to that final conversion.
There's a lot to align by the sounds of it.
Yes.
There's a lot to
Yeah.
align. Just to remind our audience, we've got over 100 odd people who have joined us in this live feed. So if you guys got any questions or any comments, drop them in the chat box. Again, makes this session a better learning experience. I've had one comment in the chat box about whether this will be on YouTube. Yes, Maria, this will be on YouTube. It will probably be on this evening. Margaret, I'm going to come to you and you're a merchandiser, so you might wonder why I'm asking you about TikTok Shop, but we had a fascinating conversation this morning, and I learned quite a lot from that conversation. I left a little bit and had a cup of tea and sat quietly thinking about that. But the sort of live commerce in particular can have a massive impact on your job as a merchandiser. Yeah. Can you explain to me what, like, if something goes viral on TikTok, what that means for you as a merchandiser? And you were talking about repeat buying and stuff.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because previously in the old school merchandising, it would be obviously you'd have your online, which we introduced, you'd have your stores, you kind of would be able to look at your data, you'd know your spikes, etc., in terms of times of years. And now it's more difficult because you've got these kind of spikes where if something's gone onto TikTok and it's gone viral, then obviously you've got that spike. But then in terms of your planning, it's quite difficult because you've got to remember that if you've had that spike, when you're doing that repeat again, it's putting in mind, is that going to have the same spike? Is the product that you've had, has it gone viral? Then other retailers have got it and then the market's saturated. So it does, in terms of those depths of buys, it kind of, you need to have the mindset of, yes, the repeat rate of sale isn't going to be the same. So it's very difficult around the planning stages. In terms of for us merchandisers, and it's making sure that obviously you're keeping an eye on those products and what the market looks like. Because for instance, you've got, like I said to you before, about a jumper with a puff print on, and you might be one of the first people to have it in, and then it's done really well, it's gone viral, and then the likes of another retailer's got it, then another retailer, and then you've repeated into it at that rate of sale, and it just drops because then the market becomes saturated with it. So it's quite a difficult one in terms of planning around that, and it does affect in terms of lead times and repeat lead times. So yeah, it's not like the old time when it used to be able to plan based on obviously your data. It's all these different elements now of what platforms people are buying things from.
So just to sort of summarize, what you're saying is if you produce something, your brand or the retailer you're working with produces something, you put it onto a various channel, let's just say TikTok Shop in this case, it goes viral. Obviously, people flock to purchase that, and then the repeat element is then the market then becomes saturated because all your competitors see, right? This is what that's basically what you're talking about.
It is, it is. And it is that, that overbuying, making sure that you're not overbuying. And obviously it's that factor of it. Yeah. So it's quite hard in terms of merchandising to juggle that sometimes.
Alex, have you ever come across that at all?
Yeah. I think really what you got to be thinking about is that your website now is just one part of your e-commerce business, and that each channel or is effectively its own sort of ecosystem that you've got to be managing in a certain way. So one product might do extremely well on TikTok and does nothing on your own website, for the discoverability within your own store, or just the fact it's resonating with a certain audience and has that appeal. through video and through content, as opposed to on your website where it's through descriptions and through images. It might have a different impact. So just sort of thinking about how it sort of works, and again with sort of pricing and discounts, that might be the driver for this as well. So you've kind of almost got to have lots of different levers that you're pulling at any one time, but making sure that you are again measuring that data. So again, when it comes back to something that we discounted something to get rid of it, it's sold, don't buy it again, or that sort of thing. It's the reason is it's because of a price point, and the margin might not actually reflect where you want to continue that product moving forward. Equally, you might use that as a customer acquisition cost, and you might roll it up into one package and go, well, actually we can acquire a customer including that price, then it's worth doing it. But what I find with a lot of businesses is that they look at everything as a rolled up metric. So where it's your average order value, your visitors, your conversion rate, and all these things, actually is you've got to dissect them by channel and by product and category, because that's where you're going to find the information that you can actually make a difference with your within your business. Otherwise, you look at everything and go, it's a positive, but you've got to find the negatives within the positives, or the counter intuitive things that are happening. So people go, average order value has gone up, great, and it's like, well, have you sold more? Is it you've sold less of something that was selling high volume at a low price? Find that information. Is conversion rate gone up? Has it actually gone up, or have you just lost a load of traffic that was new traffic, new customers that discovered you through something that you've turned off because you've decided you didn't want to gift someone anymore, or you didn't want to pay for that high intent keyword that wasn't converting at a lower thing, and it gradually feeds through into your business. So you've kind of got to be really getting into the data, not just taking all the positives, because as soon as you do that, you'll get negatives in the next 3 months.
That is it. I think it's those trading meetings now where you kind of used to go in on your trading meetings and you'd have your online channel or you'd have your store, and those were the conversations. The conversations more around cross different functions around, what's driving it, obviously visitations, is it other channels where they're buying it through, how much is coming through generic Google search. So there's a lot more when you're talking about your trading, say on a Monday morning, there's a lot more in depth that you're looking at to help you make those planning decisions. And it's also a great way in terms of, like you say, customers that go online may be different to the way a customer shops on TikTok. And is there an avenue there for you to drive some of those promotional sales? You've got something that's not working to still make it profitable. Can we take it down the route of TikTok, or can we, sell it through another element? So in a way, it's a good thing to be able to let you go to different avenues to kind of get rid of those stocks where you've got overstocks as well.
So you mentioned data there, Alex, and metrics, which moves me seamlessly onto my next question, really, which I'm going to fire at Paul first. And that is, Paul, we're kind of living in an age of a shattered funnel here, really. So where discovery and conversion happens across multiple touch points, as we've just discovered. How would you say senior leaders should think about things like attribution, performance measurements, and budgeting? What sort of advice are you dishing out to those sort of senior leaders about? I mean, attribution is just a nightmare, full stop, from what I can, from my experience. But what's your thoughts on this? How should we approach this whole attribution and data measurement?
Yeah, agreed. I think, and again, I've been frustrated, certainly in my career when I've been looking after e-commerce websites, that there's an obsession with a lot of dashboards that you to Alex's point, people ask you to focus on numbers that just aren't helpful. So there's a few things, right? Attribution is only going to get more difficult in the short term. There's no easy answer for that at the moment because there is now this big invisible gap somewhere, and the problem is that we don't even know how big this big chunk of AI that sits in the middle. We don't know how big a factor that's playing in what's going on in the results that you're getting. So I think we're just going to have to suck that up for a little while to be really straight. But I think one thing's really clear is that nobody's going to become more profitable by having a great looking dashboard. right? It's going to be about the behavior that goes on in that organization and the decision making that happens around it. So for me, still the two biggest, most important measures that are often overlooked are customers and net cash. So yes, it's important. I'm not saying that these, just ignore these things. It is really important to know the difference between what your new customers are doing and what your repeat existing customers are doing, and doing that across different types of customer segment. It's really important to know, which are your best selling products, but which are your best selling products to new customers making that first time purchase, and do their buying patterns change as they become more mature and go through your life cycle over a longer period of time. So these are still really important things, but for me, it's still more about how you segment your data, you segment your reporting, you segment your dashboards to get those really important insights that make really good decisions. But frankly, and this has been happening now for 5 years or more, like with the changes in cookies, with the changes that we're seeing in Facebook and pixels and so on, the ability to really get into granular detail about exactly what activity drove exactly what result, it's only going to get harder in the short to medium term. So there is still value in rolling these things up. So I'm kind of agreeing with Alex, and also like saying the opposite. But if you're spending X £1,000 on your marketing activity, sometimes you're going to have to accept that we spent this and we got that. Next month, next trading period, we're going to make these tests, we're going to make these adjustments. Did that go up or down? There's going to have to be a degree of that, because the detailed attribution that people think you're going to get, it's just not there yet. It's just not there yet.
We've got a couple of questions I see in the chat box. AI search, how can you ensure your product appears for this? Well, that's the golden goose, isn't it, that one? Next question as well is from Steve. Any panel views on how important third-party review sites are for AI visibility and context? Anyone got any experience in that?
Yeah, something that Diageo is actually deliberately spending some time on now, and it's challenging for Diageo as a brand that isn't huge on if you like D2C, direct to consumer, but clearly the product are bought through an awful lot of, if you like, wholesale or trade customers.
Mm-hmm.
So the aggregation of those reviews are really important, and we're putting a lot of time and effort actually in Diageo about how we can make sure that we're collecting good ratings and review data, and then being able to aggregate that, because we've seen a fair bit of evidence already with that ratings and reviews are becoming really important as one of those sources of information for AI models to present answers. So
it's interesting you to say that, because I'm having personal experience at the moment. I'm buying some plumbing equipment, and I'm literally just using AI to try and summarize reviews and stuff like that. Beth, you're nodding down there. I don't know whether you want to contribute.
This was a real focus point in another webinar that I did a few weeks ago. So completely agree that reviews, third-party and on-site reviews, are going to become even more important, especially in the era of agentic commerce. So as Google moves out of the beta that's happening in the US right now for UCP, which is obviously the actual AI agent transacting and completing the transaction, out off the website, but still using the website's main operations. But really, I think it's about having that trust stack in place for your product content. So thinking about product content as in, what trust signals is this product content giving to an AI agent, so that the AI agent can confidently answer the question, make a decision, choose that product for the checkout. So I think on-site reviews and third-party reviews are going to become really important. And I think you can see that also if anyone's looking at from a technical perspective, where Google is going with their merchant API, which is replacing the content API for exporting product data to Google Merchant Center to power shopping feeds. So they've recently just launched a dedicated API for ingesting of product level data, product level reviews, which is also going to be closely tied to their adoption of UCP.
Cool. Rosie, just one more question on metrics. I'll just come to you. What sort of metrics should people be focusing on then for like using TikTok Shop and for that matter, just kind of live commerce as a whole? What would you say the key metrics to focus on?
I think what's super interesting about obviously discovery commerce, TikTok Shop in particular, is that we're really trying to blend now revenue and performance metrics with marketing metrics, and that's quite a different and unique way of looking at driving performance now. And I think this can sometimes take time. We spend a lot of time working with e-com teams and also social teams to sort of blend the two together to understand how those metrics interact. And we look at anything from your traditional metrics like obviously revenue, AOV, sales mixes, etc., right into product impressions, follower growth, likes, comments, shares on live streams, how many people are entering the live stream rooms, so traffic metrics. And so there's a whole host of metrics to really try and understand and get on top of, I guess, in order to understand how to navigate the world of social commerce.
And then in terms of the reviews thing, obviously, I suppose the equivalent on TikTok is comments, is it? Or would that be the thing?
Yeah, reviews. I think live stream is a particularly good use case for this. So it's essentially live stream, we're interacting with the user in real time. So we're getting feedback all the time from the user in terms of what they think about that product. They might comment on product that they've recently bought or what they're looking for. And so actually it's a really good opportunity for sellers to essentially test new things, understand from the consumer base what they want, but also to get feedback about products and be able to respond in real time and have that conversation with the user directly, which is really powerful. And again, sort of loops into this like community conversation piece, which I think is really important now in the space.
And do you know if the AI assistants pick up on, do they read the TikTok comments? Is that part? Do you know if that's
Yes, the comments are definitely, how many times the user is interacting on the live stream is really important, and it does have a direct effect into how much traffic and exposure that live room gets. So it's super important to make sure that as a seller you're engaging and you're interacting, and that's why sort of gamification strategies are really interesting, because again ultimately it's an entertainment and platform. So the more entertaining the content is, the more likely you are to watch and ultimately drive conversion.
Okay. Next question then I've got is, I want to put it out to all of you actually, but I'm going to come to you first, Margaret, because you touched on this a little bit earlier. But I mean, the question is, what structural or capability shifts are required inside a retail organization, such as across e-commerce, merchandising, marketing, and tech, to truly complete this sort of multi-surface AI influence ecosystem? You talked about it also this morning about like that you've noticed that like now marketing has to speak to merch has to speak to e-com. I mean, obviously Rosie just mentioned that they talk to both social teams and e-commerce teams. Do you want to sort of elaborate on what shifts you're seeing in terms of how organizational structures are changing?
Yeah, a lot more in sync working across e-commerce and across marketing and with the product teams as well. More talking around obviously hero products, what they're doing in terms of advertisement, what plans are looking at, obviously the social side of it, how they're interacting with AI within the business. And it's a lot more conversations around putting in, processes in place and speaking around to different stakeholders how to drive those budgets, because obviously consumers know it's not just straight to the website. There's different elements. So it's very important that the product teams are discussing obviously the plans and the ranges and what's happening, and then it was discussing with them on their plans and their budgets. So it's kind of everybody collectively is delivering on those sales. So yeah, there is a lot more interaction across the different, and with customer service as well, getting that feedback when you're talking about the third party, like obviously the trust pilots, etc., getting the feedback from the customer service as well on the interaction, and as all just working more in sync. And I've seen that a lot more over the past 2-3 years with retailers that I've been working with.
Paul, are you noticing that? Obviously, you're working with a lot more bigger organizations. Are you
Yeah,
noticing a bit more joined up thinking?
yeah, I agree with Margaret. I've started to see it happen a little bit more just over the last few years. If we go back to the days when e-commerce first started and was still quite young, everything was siloed and separate, and e-com and retail teams didn't really interact at all, and merch would take a decision away from marketing. So it's all of that has changed really significantly. I think AI is going to be something really, for me, is going to be really important that businesses don't put AI in a similar separate box. So like, oh, it's that team over there that does that thing. We've got to think about, yes, we've got to have functional verticals and we've got to have channels. We've got to operate that way. But the more people that you can work across the organization, the more people you can work across channels and across functions and think like the customer does. I think they're the organizations that are going to be more successful.
Reminds me a bit of the early days of e-commerce, isn't it? Oh, that's the web team over there, basically.
Yeah.
John and Steve in the corner, they're the web team. Alex, I've got to come to you on this question. Uh, in terms of joined up thinking, because you told us a story at one of our last sessions, I think it was one of our conferences, about where there was an example of one of the businesses you were working where there wasn't joined up thinking, and apparently there was you had a lot of overstock, and you dropped it into sale, and then obviously it cleared out, and then was it the merchandisers or the buying team then rebought or something like that?
Yeah, but basically, yeah, you've said the story. Yeah, so yeah, they rebought something that you sat on for years. The owner had sort of said, I'm going to be dead before we shift this, get it cleared, whatever you sort of do. So we got it cleared, and then it's hit something, and because again that the past data or conversations don't exist necessarily on a spreadsheet, they've gone and rebought it, and I think this is the key with anything with when we talk about AI. Just treat it also like humans. You've still got some pretty average AI solutions in the marketplace, and we'll weed them out, and where you'll sort of find those really strong AI solutions where and you are going to have to pay for them, you're going to have to invest in them, you're going to have to train them in your way of thinking. And I think this is the key with businesses. They have to invest in it and align to it all. And it's not a case of, oh, you're using it and it's a dirty thing, it's a bad thing. It's like, no, it's using that, and it's sped up the efficiency, the processes. It's right. We were able to check this, we're able to sort of finesse what we're doing and check it in real time and move on quickly. And I think this is where I guess you've got to work with the senior leadership teams or the owners of the businesses and educate them on more on how they can change their mindset towards it, and the businesses mindset, and actually utilizing it as well. When you're talking about all the different teams that you've sort of got, there's so much crossover and inefficiencies that could sort of be helped. And it always used to be sort of like the your development team was the bottleneck, or the design team was the bottleneck within a business. You could never be short of ideas, but actually being able to implement them was always the challenge. Now that's kind of sort of flipped on its head, and you've kind of got to sort of like really focus on sort of what are the key things that you've got to move quickly with, and actually sort of then and equally go, actually no, that doesn't have that purpose for AI. We want to still keep that in-house and sort of do that. But I think when we're sort of talking about what's sort of going on in businesses, we're all heavily reliant on the last click sort of attribution model. And I think what we've got to do is really understand everything that's happening outside of that. So whether it is the searches on um, TikTok, I had a couple of examples where give someone a top, got 1 million views, 100,000 likes. I didn't get any sales from it, and it's because it's kind of that wasn't the purpose of it. It's kind of they're talking about something. It's nice. It's relevant to that sort of thing. Now I might get a bit of brand awareness and get sales out of it later down the line. I think what you can't do is try and take credit for something that actually hasn't had an impact. It's going to add up to the brand long tail, and long term, and sort of have a benefit. But not everything has to result in a sale that day, and I think that's kind of the key with some of this sort of stuff. And equally, going back to that sort of trust pilot thing, you can't second guess what a customer's going to do. I gifted someone a black t-shirt as part of I thought it was a nice sort of thing. And he left a 1-star review for getting a free gift because it was black. And his arch rivals playing black and they playing red. So he bought a red one, gave him a black, So you can't second guess people. You just got to learn from it and take that information and sort of like, again, apply it to how you're going to, operate moving
It
forward.
wasn't me, by the way. You've gifted me a hood. I've got your audio now. It wasn't me, by the way. We've got a hand up in the audience by chat. Alex, if you've got a question, pop that in the chat box. We've also got a question, I think probably best for you, Steph, actually. But before I do that, I just want to ask Rosie quickly, in terms of the people who interact with you then from retailers and brands, just to talk about this joined up thinking thing. Is it normally the same person in the business, or is it range from e-commerce, or is it a special social team, or is it?
Yeah, so I guess really to be successful in discovery commerce, you've got to think about, your assortment. So really it's having someone from a sort of buying or product merchandising side of the business, as well as e-com. So thinking about the techie side of things, like the integration piece. Also thinking about sort of the influencer and social team. So affiliates drive a large percentage of the performance on TikTok. So for most sort of key accounts, it's around 60 to 75%. So they have a huge part in, collaborating with different creators and partnerships and orchestrating that. And then also it's thinking around advertising as well and media. So we have, shop advertising, and how shop advertising, I guess, also interplays with the full advertising strategy of any brand. So really we're looking at social influencer, product, merch, ecom, and advertising. So it's really connecting all of those teams together in order to, I guess, educate, but also just be really, really successful in the discovery commerce space.
Brilliant. A question here from Alison. It's going back to what we were talking about earlier. Can you elaborate a little bit about the product level reviews piece on Google Merchant API? Do you want to quickly answer that, Steph, or you can send a message?
I'll answer briefly, and then I'm happy to have a separate discussion with Alison about this. So the Merchant API, they as part of like this new modular approach that Google are taking to the Merchant API, they have very recently just launched a new sub API for reviews. So that might be why you've not seen that yet. It is pretty new. So that's a separate API to push reviews data basically into the GMC. But I can help you navigate that and help you understand that a bit more if that's something you want to dive into.
Email privately as well to them if you want. Okay, so we're coming to the last 5 minutes now. So just to sort of cap off the whole inter-team, I think it's pretty well. We've got some consensus now that teams are talking together and having to talk together and having those joined up thinking. Certainly with the brands I work with now, we're noticing that product around the table, marketing around the table, logistics even. But yeah, so last 5 minutes. If any of the audience have got any other questions, please, now is your chance. We've got probably time for one more. But I'd like to just thank Steph and the Athos Commerce team for supporting today's session. Andra will pop the details in the chat. And I just want to go right round the panel now and just ask you all individually, if there's one thing you would like the audience to not forget from today's session, what would that be? Can I come to you first, Margaret? What's your kind of killer piece of advice that,
Yeah, mine is more so obviously retailers are shifting from managing stock now to managing discoverability. So it's all about, it's not just about getting the right stock now, it's about thinking about where the customer is shopping, how we deliver that to the customer. So that's kind of one thing that I think is shifted quite a lot in terms of retail.
Alex, what would your sort of like part and thought be?
Yeah, I just think, retailers traditionally always used to compete on clicks and sort of buying a brand and building it up and sort of spending the money for success. I think now it's very much about building your own reputation and sort of your own sort of, fun element to your brand as well. Your brand is far more than just a product. And I think it's that and your community, your audience, all that sort of needs to play a part in this. So I think, yeah, just thinking about sort of like, it's not all about that last click attribution and spending money and sort of optimizing that. There's far more that goes into and teams, people within your team need to get far more credit for what they actually contribute to the overarching success. I think sometimes that doesn't necessarily happen.
Rosie, there's just one thing you'd like the listeners to the session to remember. What would it be?
Yeah, I think along the same lines, I think, commerce and media is super connected more than ever now. So I think it's really important to have your brand and your products in the place of consumer wherever they are at any moment in time. So storytelling, optimizing products and being agile and adapting that as, trends develop rapidly. And then just trialing and testing as many AI tools as possible. I think being at the forefront of innovation is key. So you're continually a step ahead of it.
Margaret's nodding enthusiastically there. Steph, can I come to you? If there's one thing you'd like the audience not to forget from today's session, what would it be?
I think it's probably around the shift in thinking about the data powering your offsite product discovery and moving that mindset from it being a tick in the box product data feed that's technical and thinking about it as a strategic commercial asset. That's going to be key to winning in agentic commerce. And I suppose secondary to that is also to not just think about the product data in a siloed way for offsite, but starting to develop a unified strategy around on-site discovery and off-site discovery.
Okay. Interesting. And Paul, you want to
Yeah. Well, we've got all these new words for all these new different things, and there's, things are moving and changing so quickly. Humans have been trading, shopping, retailing, buying for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And there are still some things that are exactly the same. Knowing your customer, knowing what their needs are, being trusted and being relevant have always been important, and they'll carry on being important. So if nothing else, continuing to focus on the right things for your customer will still be successful.
And what would be the 1,000-year-old TikTok shop equivalent? The dude on the market store shouting.
I think it involved chalk and a big rock.
No doubt. Well, guys, our time's up. We finished perfectly on time. I really appreciate everyone's time for doing this. I appreciate your insights. Appreciate everyone who's tuned into this. If you want to get in touch with anyone here at the Fashion Network Ecom Club, best way to do it is just have a look at our Eventbrite page. Our next event is 16th of July in London. So for anyone who's involved or based down there, we've got our e-commerce leadership summit. Huge thanks again for Athos Commerce. If you want to get involved with them, get a free audit or speak to Steph or the team there, there's an email in that chat box. So appreciate that, guys, and hopefully see you all again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dale. Bye.
Bye-bye.